Hello and welcome again to a fantastic conversation. You've tuned into WIO Support's Close Encounters of the Tech Kind. That took me a second to get there. We talk about all kinds of things technical. We will segue into the non sequitur and try and come back. But either way, it's going to be a great conversation. We have a fantastic idea of how to start tonight. We're going to talk about end user license agreements and some of the changes there. But if you have any thoughts, comments, we'd love to hear them. This is a conversation for all of us. So please pipe in and see where this goes. I'm John, founder of WIO Support, and with us today we've got Mike.
Hey, everybody.
Jackson.
Hey, guys.
And Artie. We'll learn more about everybody next time, but episode 39, we're going to stick to the idea of end user license agreements and Firefox change.
So does anyone actually read those though? Like, for real? Who's read one?
Like 100% from top to bottom?
Oh yeah. Nobody,
I know
right?
people that have.
I haven't.
They're lawyers though.
I think the most I've read was like maybe a paragraph. But other than that, I just hit accept and allow my fate to be decided by the overlords.
You know, I actually got on a call one time. So, previous job, we would split package software across different computers. That was allowed until one day it wasn't. So we had the Adobe CS1 package.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, you remember that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we put Illustrator on one computer, we put Photoshop on another computer, so you'd have two sets of kids doing different things. It was great. It used to be separate box products. But then all of a sudden, it's one, and I'm installing it, and the license isn't activating correctly. So I call up tech support. The guy says, well, it's in the license agreement. Didn't you read that? And I'm there like, wow, I can't believe tech support just asked me, did I read the agreement? It's like, okay, fine. You want to give me a smart answer? I'm going to give you, or a smart question. I'm going to give you a smart answer. Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't fully understand the concepts that are laid out inside that. Yes, I read it, but I didn't read this part. Can you tell me where it's at?
I mean, that's the thing.
He couldn't.
Somebody, like, who are the people? Do people make a living off of just reading license agreements and then just
They're called lawyers.
Hey, by the way.
Lawyers.
Oh, man.
Okay, so
that's awful.
They used to get paid by the word.
I hooked up some new stuff to my machine, and I now have sound. So my microphone's now working through OBS. So, yeah, everything up until this point has been quiet from me. So,
welcome to the show. Glad to have you, Artie.
I'm Artie. I'm the person keeping this thing afloat, and yeah.
Heaven help us. Please hang on to the bar.
I never know if we're floating on the ocean or if we're like flying. Does it just vary week to week, you know?
It's a bit of both.
Is it like one of those James Bond's vehicles, you know? It just does everything.
It's amphibious. Dives down.
You think James Bond had to read his terms of service before?
Q writes out the terms of service and hands it to him, says, here, read this.
No, you have to scroll all the way to the bottom before the accept button even lights up, right?
Something like
while
that.
While the bad guys are chasing you.
You got Dr. Hook or whatever is coming at him, and he's trying to activate his laser guided watch, and he can't because he's got to scroll to the next and next and next and then accept.
Then he has to create an account.
Two-factor authentication.
What was the last James Bond's mother's maiden name?
I was just telling somebody about that today. I don't remember how it came up, but we were just, making a joke. Oh, when somebody asks for your name, they go, oh, by the way, what was your first pet's name? What was your mother's maiden name? And then I told them, remember all those Facebook because we've talked about it on the podcast before. You know, all the Facebook questionnaires, and it blew his mind. He's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. About how many, questionnaires he's taken, and that he's given away all of his security questions.
All of them. Nice.
I was like, hey, well, at least you know which Hogwarts house you are.
Yeah.
Well, that's a crazy thing. So just on an aside, when I get those questions on, what is your first pet? What is the first street you grew up on? I always make it up. I remember it for that site. So, Microsoft would be, and this isn't real, but Microsoft would be like Redmond. So that I
As-
remember it.
Wait, what's Redmond? Like the street you grew up on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But that's not the street I grew up on. That's the hometown of Microsoft.
What's the actual one you grew up on?
It was
it's
asphalt.
Ignore the weak.
It was a dirt road.
It's a dirt road. Hey, same here. That only narrows it down, to several thousands, millions. I don't know how many dirt
Well, most
roads are in
people
the
grow up
United
in
States.
houses. I don't know why it's asking what street I grew up on, because that means
Hey, some people grew up on the street.
that's true.
Hey, good for them. They made it that far where they're making Microsoft accounts. Good for them.
So, end user license agreements. What exactly are they?
Oh, yeah.
They are what we tend to. Now that you can hear me,
What?
They-
What'd you say?
they tend to be sort of pseudo contracts that are what we have to click agree to. They tend to get intermixed with terms of service, which is a completely different barrel of worms.
It's a barrel. Wow.
Yeah, not just a bucket. So essentially, it's telling you what the agreement between you and the service that you're using is going to be, and terms for like legal liability or when they can shut down your account or stuff like that. And yeah, it's something that I think has been abused a lot because we don't get to choose any of the terms in the contract.
Well, you either get to use the software or you don't. And, can you say it's an agreement if it's a one-sided termed thing? Now, I'm not asking that for a serious question, because the answer is no, you can't. You can't argue it. It's like going to the bank and saying, hey, I don't like these fees. Let's modify this contract because I don't want to pay bank fees anymore.
Yeah, the
No.
bank will go somewhere else.
Yep.
That reminds me of there was a guy that got the credit card contract that was sent to him, the you've been pre-approved contract, and he went through, edited it, signed it, and sent it back in to give himself a zero interest, zero payment required until the end of the thing with no limit. And because the bank sent him the card after he had done all that, and he kept a copy for himself, they were trying to demand payment for everything from him. It went to court and it ended in his favor because
Nice.
you didn't read the contract that you sent a card out on. It's not his fault. You didn't read your contract.
You didn't
Wait,
read
so-
the EULA?
Yeah.
Wait, so how did that? Because they still do that. Wait, so how did it work? He changed it, sent it back, and then they sent him the card with his
Yeah,
changed contract.
And because of that guy, they have altered how they do those contracts now. And I think after that, they also started sending out fewer of the pre-approved messages. So
Mhm.
there was a net benefit to him doing
And the
this.
rest of the world. I hate getting those letters in the mail all the time. That always reminds me of, remember when I shouldn't say the first, but when AI chatbots were becoming a thing, and some guy convinced the chatbot to just give him a ton of free products or all of his money back or something like that. Every time I see, go ahead.
There was a time when Alexa first came out, and I said it. Sorry, guys, Anybody that's got an Alexa in the room, it's not going to say, "What do you want?" When it first came out, it didn't have any filter, didn't have any discretion, didn't have any like checks and balances.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have a toddler come up to the Alexa and say, "I want cookies."
They just buy cookies for you.
Okay, how many would you like? A lot. Well, how soon do you want them? Now.
Express shipping.
There was a consumer protection investigative reporter in the UK that so Amazon is supposed to have certain rules in place for what can be sent through the mail, and he had his nieces that were like 7 and 5 order a ton of things through Alexa that they should not have been able to order, that came and they did not require signing for these things, and it's like knives. So nothing that the rest of the world would consider really bad, but over there, they've got rules for sending sharp objects through the mail. And, you know, these companies, they'd like to protect their butts using stuff like the EULA, but at the same time, they're not protecting themselves with their practices.
I think we just stumbled across why they haven't hooked up large language models to e-commerce.
How so?
How many times have you typed in something and it gets it completely wrong, or it hallucinates, or says, "Yes, hey, let me show you, like case precedent history," and it just completely makes up stuff on the spot.
A large language model, right? Yeah. That happens. So what is it, how does that integrate into
So
what we're
that's
talking
that, I'm saying that's why Alexa isn't based on a large language model.
Think of
Well,
the lawyers that have been caught in the past few months using generated content for filings.
Hallucinated.
Yes.
Mhm.
Nobody
like we almost
hallucinates like
need-
ChatGPT.
we need like a new term for that for AI, I think. 'Cause I mean,
Okay, what would you call it?
I have no idea. AI hallucinations. Because that's just too wordy, you know? Because you can say hallucinate, and then it's like, I don't know.
In the
Somebody should
comments, let
coin a
us know
term.
what you would call it.
AI fiction.
Artificial 8?
Artificial 8. I don't know. I'll have to stew on that one. I had a question and now it just escaped me. Oh, well, because I don't keep up with it, but Apple had announced that they they were integrating Siri with a large language model that was based off ChatGPT. I assume Google is now also using, because I mean, Google has their AI assistant for their smartphones. I assume it's now based off Gemini or somehow integrated with that. So how does
trying.
that? And I don't know, did Apple actually release it? Because I know they said, I mean, they announced like the iPhone 15 or 16 or, whichever model they're on now with the AI. And then like, oh, by the way, it doesn't come out till October. And that's now long gone. So I don't know. I don't know if they actually did it and if they did, how it's been performing.
I heard they rolled it out and then it quickly rolled it back because it was just not correct.
Because, I mean, I don't know why that's so hard, honestly. Well, because here's my opinion. I have an iPhone and I use the current old Siri, and Siri is so useless to me. Like the only thing I use her for is like setting a timer. Like set a timer for 20 minutes and then we're good. But as far as like if I have an actual question, I always have to go to ChatGPT and type it out. I'm like, why? I mean, is it really that much worse? Because I mean, Siri's kind of useless to me right now.
Well,
They've
how
had to
much
put so
can
many
you
guardrails. Go ahead.
Yeah, how much can you trust what the answer that you're getting? I had an experience last week. I was trying to get information about something, and I explicitly put in the statement, "No, blank is not correct. What is blank?" And it kept on it 8 times in a row. It spat back the same false answer. while
Mhm.
apologizing for giving me the wrong answer last time
Hmm.
after being corrected.
Right.
You know, that I used AI to generate a picture of our blue and white shirts and have a tech working on computers.
I remember that. That was great.
You remember how I said put less muscle and it just got more? It's like,
Oh,
okay,
yeah.
reduce the muscle by 75%. And then you had this guy that's ripped like 300 pounds with no fat, just massive biceps
That was
typing on a
hilarious.
computer. It was
Keep saying the word muscle. You must be preoccupied with muscles. I mean, that
It was
trying to
great. I
unoccupy
mean,
the muscle.
by
But
the end of it, we
that's
had a jacked technician. It was great.
oh, that was Easter egg somewhere on the website. We should put that in there.
Oh, we should.
That could be
Yes.
fun. Anyway,
Little like
Find the
this
hidden
little
could be
tech.
holiday
something.
card, outdated
Look
holiday
back,
card with the technician.
we're gonna look back 2 years on this podcast and say, "Oh, that's a hidden gem." So EULAs. So let's jump back. I got to rein this back in because I don't want to lose all cohesion, just some of it. Firefox updated their terms of service to say that they can now use everything you type in, all the data you enter. You don't have right to it; they have right to it. Artie, do you have the snippet?
I do not
I've
have
got
the snippet directly
I've
up in
got
front of me.
I've got it, I think.
All right,
Go
go
for it,
ahead,
Mike.
Mike.
So this comes from Hacker News, and they've got the excerpts. So the previous version of the clause went into effect on February 26, which was just last week, right? And it said, when you upload or input information through Firefox, you hereby grant us a non-exclusive, royalty-free, worldwide license to use that information to help you navigate, experience, and interact with the online content as you indicate with your use of Firefox.
So, what kind of information are they talking about? Because I'm a Firefox user. I have my address. I don't think I save credit card information in Firefox. I don't trust that much.
You typed it in on a website.
Are they tracking that for real?
The language is loose.
That's what it says. That's what the original language says, that when you upload or input information through Firefox. So that means
It's
like
l-
uploading a
So
picture.
they're becoming Google now, where they just track everything you do and will show you ads nonstop.
Well, that's what everybody was afraid of. Is
Yeah.
they're saying, here's this dragnet, and everything that anybody ever types in, that's ours. We Firefox are going to own everything. And
Microsoft, what do they call it? Recall?
I think this is worse than recall because
Who
recall isn't
gets-
claiming rights to your information.
Right.
It's just recording it all.
Mike, does that article have the updated announcement?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So the revised terms of service
When did that come out?
now says you give, let's see. Yeah, you give Mozilla the rights necessary to operate Firefox. This includes processing your data as we describe in the Firefox privacy notice, which there's a link then to the privacy notice. It also includes a non-exclusive, royalty-free worldwide license for the purpose of doing as you request with the content you input in Firefox. This does not give Mozilla any ownership in that content.
All right.
Can you
So
imagine a board meeting after everybody literally said, "Oh my gosh, I'm dumping Firefox"?
because I mean, Firefox, that was the whole. I mean, I don't really know, but I mean, Firefox was kind of open source. That was the thing. It was like, we're private. We don't sell your data.
And hey, it still markets itself on privacy, because I just did a Firefox upgrade on a Linux machine last night. And when you launch it, it goes through like kind of like the startup and the setup and everything, and it says privacy browser, most private browser,
Right. That's kind of their whole thing.
that's kind of like their
Maybe,
niche and their thing, like private from everybody else.
well, from everybody else,
Just you and me
even with
here.
that last statement, they're probably still the most private.
Probably.
The mistaked terms of service where they
Mhm.
want everything, it's still probably more private than the competition.
There's the offshoot LibreWolf that basically strips away all of that.
I
So
still
it's-
love the offshoot of Iceweasel.
What are these? Are these browsers?
Yeah,
It's forks.
LibreWolf is still active. Iceweasel, I'm not sure if it is.
No, they killed that. I think it just got too out of hand. The fork got abandoned. But I love the name. Just Iceweasel.
There was a browser that was getting really popular, or at least I was seeing a lot more ads for it and whatnot a few months ago, but I haven't seen any recently. Was Opera? I mean, do they claim to be kind of like Firefox, like private? I know it's like, I think the
Opera's
premise is
an
like for
old one.
gamers. I don't know.
Opera, the only place I've seen Opera is on gaming consoles and niche devices that really have a dedicated function, but for whatever reason have some internet connectivity, and so
Right.
they put the Opera browser on it.
I used to
That's
use it
Smart
as my daily
TVs,
driver.
things like that. Yeah.
What was your
I-
take
Opera.
on-
Opera a while back decided they were going to find that niche to differentiate themselves because they were losing market. And that's when they got into the gamer enhancements. So you could have your chat next to your game, and then you could have a video off to the other side. You could do split frame and separate window splits. Super cool. But for a long time, it was just like Firefox or Chrome or Internet Explorer. Can't believe I said that.
My problem with Opera and all the instances that I used is that it was always like 2 or 3 steps behind in compatibility with, especially with CSS standards and
Mhm.
everything. While everybody else is able to render a web page mostly correct, Opera was still like 2 steps behind that, and it could at least get, the text on the screen, but it didn't look anything like what it was supposed to. And sometimes that broke a couple websites for me. It's like, I can't see this to make it useful, so I'm not going to use Opera anymore.
Mm.
But there you
Yep.
go. But my expectations of it, where I've seen it like on my Nintendo Wii or gaming systems, smart TVs is another place I've seen it. I mean, it does what it does, and sometimes that's all it needs to do. Just to get to a certain site and access something, that's all I need it for, then it works.
And it's great at that too.
Hmm.
If you're gonna, I think it was a brilliant move. If you're gonna package your software with anything, Android phones come with Google Chrome, period. Like, it's built in. You can't uninstall it. Google has been hit with antitrust for bundling their software everywhere, so Chrome is ubiquitous.
Curious if anyone's
Opera,
heard any news on that. Just on another little side tangent.
it's still sitting in the courts right now. The lawyers are going back and forth feverishly, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anyway, continue.
Well, Opera, if you get that niche of gaming and set-top boxes and gaming consoles, and just kind of get those the forgotten abouts, keep your name going. I think it's kind of brilliant.
I've discovered recently that, like, oh, now I'm forgetting. I wonder if it was Panasonic. One of those companies you never hear about. Turns out they're making like batteries, and there's batteries that Tesla buys. It's like they all just kind of, a lot of these companies are really broad. You see all this stuff from, I don't know if it was them, but Panasonic. I think they used to make TVs and audio
They make
devices.
good batteries.
And then all of a sudden now they're making batteries, and it's the batteries that Tesla buys. And like, there you go, there's your market. And they just kind of, come away from the general public eye, but they find a niche.
Panasonic's made all kinds of stuff, cameras,
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. Yeah.
electronics. Yeah.
But you don't really see them very often anymore, do you? I haven't seen them.
No, they're out there.
It's out there.
It's just the
You know, another name
consumer market.
is Hitachi.
Yeah.
hmm
Hard drives, TV. We had a Hitachi TV set for the longest time back in the 80s.
Mhm.
And then to find out that they also made like other stuff like that's not remotely related to a TV set is just I found really interesting.
I found out that Mitsubishi makes batteries too, I think, which was
Mitsubishi is
really
another one that
weird.
makes a lot of different things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just automobiles.
Mm-mm. Yamaha makes all sorts of stuff. It's so fun. I grew up, you know, with a Yamaha piano, and then I was like, wait, they make motorcycles?
They make
And
some of the best
generators.
motorcycles.
Yeah, and they make good ones too. Which, fun fact, I mean, I assume you guys know, but if anyone in our audience doesn't know, the Yamaha logo is tuning forks.
I think
Yep.
I did know that, yeah. I remember learning that.
When the
Back in
R1
my
first came
class.
out,
Mm-hmm.
it was lighter than the racing class that it was built for. So, I think I'm right on this. I might be wrong. 400 pounds was the minimum entry level for the class,
Mm-hmm.
and the bike was 380 pounds.
Did they mean to do that, or was that like, oh, whoops?
I think it was a whoops, but my thought is, okay, so just add a 20-pound weight to the very bottom of the bike and lower your center of gravity.
Yeah, honestly.
But I don't race motorcycles. Don't know if that's a great idea. Might be a horrible idea. So don't take my advice on that, anybody, because I don't want anybody hurt.
Well, anyway, I'm trying to remember how we got here. I think pulling it
EULA.
back to our our browser's issue. So
EULAs,
Firefox,
end user license agreements.
right? Firefox, they came out with that one. Everyone was latched, or what do you call that? Didn't like it. They changed it within what, a few days or a week.
Yeah,
Couple days.
So in its current state, I guess I got kind of lost when you were going through some of that lingo. What was the biggest difference? Was it just that they no longer own it, but they're still going to be tracking it, or what was kind of the
So the language got more specific to
Mhm.
their intent. When it was originally changed, the one that Mike first read,
Right.
it was written towards their idea of we're going to use your data and we're going to browse the internet using your data. While it's in our hands, it's ours. We're not going to steal it. We're not going to do anything. But you can't say that your use of our browser is exclusive and our browser is infringing on your rights because it's our browser.
Mhm.
But they wrote it, you know, in I think crayon and colored way outside the lines, and everybody freaked out appropriately. And I think the revision they put out brings it closer to their original intention.
you know, as I'm looking at it, looking at the original paragraph, it almost looks like the original paragraph just came from a boilerplate template that their legal team had on file or something. It's just like, yeah,
Mhm.
here, just stick this paragraph in, and not really reading it to know what the reaction was going to be or how people might misinterpret it. Because,
Mhm.
like, even in the original, it's granting Firefox Mozilla a non-exclusive royalty worldwide license. You're granting them a license to use the information. I don't think it does not say anything in there about ownership, that becomes ours. So ownership is one thing, but then giving that license, you have to understand, well, what's the license for? Okay,
Mhm.
you're saying I allow you to use this information within the confines of whatever we say here, and the last part of that sentence is to use that information to help you navigate, experience, and interact. And I think that's just so concise that people felt like it, like, wait, what does that really mean? Like there's some lost meaning. And so the other paragraph, I mean, in fact, the original paragraph was one sentence. The revised paragraph is 4 sentences. They broke it up into 4 distinct sentences to explain that.
They had to get very specific because every privacy advocate was looking at that saying, what?
The other thing I think though too is that, why put this in? And information, as we know, is now a commodity. I mean, that's what brings us all this up, is that people don't want their information out there being sold to other third parties, right? And it's a commodity. People are trading information like it's baseball cards or something.
They say data's the new oil.
And so Firefox, Mozilla probably felt like that they had to start putting something like that in there to protect their side. I mean, because if you don't do that, at some point, some government or some other entity may come up with some law or something that would actually prohibit the use of Firefox. Why? Because it uses your information and they're not licensed to use your information.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I can see both sides of it. I can see maybe why they had to put that in there.
Well, and it's such an interesting grab because we're watching companies. We talked about this in podcasts ago. We're watching companies sue DNS to say strip out our data from your records.
Mm-hmm.
Why would Firefox say, okay, your data you're typing in is ours? Because now they subject themselves to, you can't handle MP3s because MP3s are not allowed anymore, or whatever it is.
And the other thought I just had too is that to all of us here, it's common sense that if I download a program and install it on my computer, I'm accepting a certain degree of risk of using that program. Because we've also seen end user license agreements that says that the company is not responsible for any damage to your computer that this program may cause. Okay. Now, we don't expect that by downloading and installing Firefox that it's going to cause my USB port to short out and fry up, right? But there always is that one case, that one chance that somebody did it on their computer, and it just so happened that a USB port all of a sudden threw a bunch of sparks and went smoke, let all the magic blue smoke out, and claims that it's Firefox. When he installed Firefox, that's what caused it. So software companies have to put that in there that, we're not responsible for any damage that causes to your computer. Now, more realistically, that could mean, destruction of data on your hard drive or interaction with other programs that may be happening or something like that. But it's common sense. I installed it, there's going to be some risk. I download Firefox, I understand that in order to really use it, I have to be able to type stuff in. I have to move my mouse around. I have to point and click and provide input so that it can then present information back to me. I accept that there's some risk in what I'm sending. But now we have to, because of, legal reasons, we have to be more explicit and spell that out so that people can protect themselves, both companies and users.
It's going to be a fun time figuring out how to navigate these new changes, all the laws that are coming out. Like privacy's under attack because we got to protect people from themselves, and like it's gonna be fun watching this happen and unfold, and it's gonna be frightening watching it unfold and happen.
So I guess, with that, I mean, what lessons should be taken and learned from this, recent event?
You will own nothing and you will be happy.
Is that you telling me that, or?
It's in the agreement. You signed it.
Of course
you
I
clicked
did.
I agree.
Yeah, I didn't read it.
I mean, you could always go through the channels and, you know, send to a company like Mozilla, Firefox, or Microsoft or whoever else and say, look, I am giving notice that you're going to delete all my information. Or I own the information. I'm hereby revoking your license to use my information. I'm no longer using your product, and I revoke the license that you have on any of data that I previously sent. I mean, I'm sure there's channels that you could do that. I'm sure it's very time consuming and probably costs you a few bucks to, you know, pay a good lawyer to really help you figure out what you can and can't do.
I would love to see legislation that puts teeth in the delete my data from your records. I mean, how awesome would it be if you could say, hey, Microsoft, delete my numbers, delete my names, delete all that stuff. And if it's included in any subsequent data breach from your organization after the date of my request, you pay everything.
So
That could be fun.
yeah, and I'm not sure what that might look like or implications, but I'm wondering now, does that make it easier for malpractice or malicious behavior? If malpractice is probably the wrong word, but malicious behavior online, you know, is it then really easy for me, a hacker, to maybe set up an account, do whatever I want with it, and then immediately have that all wiped out? If we do go down that route and it's a
Ooh.
lot easier, do you then create
Ooh.
some security holes with that? See what I'm saying?
Jackson, I like that thought. I hate that
Because they
thought.
can erase their
Horrible.
tracks and their footprints, huh?
Yeah, if it's a lot easier to do that, or if I really want to screw someone over, as soon as I'm in their account and I can now request that this entire thing be wiped off the face of the
Yeah,
planet.
I just hacked into super sensitive government data. I don't want any paper trail that I did that, so delete my trails.
All right, John.
That's a good idea.
So, but at the same time, on the other side of that, right? It's the whole thing. It just takes one person to ruin the whole thing. I want to be able to remove my data from companies that I don't trust. Everyone requires you to make an account now, and I know we've talked about this, but everyone wants you to make an account, but I don't trust everyone with my email and password or whatever. So it's double-edged sword.
Yep.
I don't know what the answer is.
No, but I think that's a fantastic entry into the conversation. We should hashtag that for this video.
Yeah.
Just
I'd really
saying.
like to know what people have to say about that, because there's really two sides to it.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine the anonymity that would bring?
Mm-hmm. You can do a lot of things very quickly online, and imagine if you can just poof it all away.
Wave your hand by the order of delete me?
Mm-hmm. And on
Oh.
top of that, now you are putting a lot of extra demand on any company that needs you to create an account for whatever reason. You now have to have an automated process that's going to actually delete all of that data. You have to make sure it's actually gone, and
It's actually a requirement.
right. But I mean,
Like right now, that is.
right, it is a requirement now, but how often are people doing it? It's not very often, right? But if you make that a lot more accessible and you get rid of all of the calls you have to make and the emails you have to send and the waiting time to get your account deleted, I mean, it serves as a deterrent, because companies don't want to have to deal with this. Because I don't know what the standards are, the laws are, but when you tell a hard drive, okay, delete that data, it's not actually deleting it unless you overwrite it like 4 times. That data can be recovered. And so at what is the threshold then that is being placed upon companies for them to consider data deleted?
They just have to remove the records from their working system. They don't have to scrub the data off the hard drives. Like a wipe the drive with overwriting 4 times. That's not in the laws. Maybe
So
it should be.
Well,
right. So then you get back
It's
to
in some of the laws, just not for the general data deletion.
Mhm.
I mean, you got to
And
trust
I'm
your data center to sanitize the drive and then correctly put it through the tree shredder.
and the backups.
and the backups.
And the backups of the backups.
And how well do you think all of that's traced?
And I'm kind of also thinking back to what we read here in kind of like their original paragraph. When you upload or input information through Firefox. So Firefox is just a medium, a channel of transmitting the information that they happen to maybe grab a piece of it as it's going through. You know, you're at your computer, you're typing it in, it's going to go to a server on a website somewhere that third party, I mean, the information is now Firefox has it, plus the website that you're on, which has maybe nothing to do with Firefox. You know, it's Apple, it's Microsoft, it's somebody else, right? But then it's like, well, my ISP was also a channel that was used to make that. Now, hopefully, if everything's being done right, then the transmission of that data should be encrypted so that even if your ISP has the packets of information that are going across, there's not anything useful that can be retrieved from that except maybe your source and destination IP addresses, you know, really.
Until they get a quantum computer, though, right?
But then you get to the other side, to the website. There's the host provider for the website, which may not necessarily be Apple, you know, the company or whatever. It's some other service that's provided as a hosting service. They're going to have a copy of the data. So you look at all these different places where your data exists, and you want to say, well, Firefox has my data. I'm going to call them up. Hey, remove my data. Well, yeah, you took it out of that one little piece, but the same copy of that data now exists in like 4, 5, a dozen, maybe different places, possibly, potentially.
And never mind the secret backup copies our governments are taking of everything.
Right. And how many of those governments have their own personal secret backdoors?
None of them, according to official transcripts.
I thought we were finished with the backdoor conversation.
Oh, we are. But it still exists. Still a
They're
thing.
not. They're not done with it.
So, yeah, I think Mike is right in that, you know, your data is being kept by quite a few people, but I don't think it's everything, because I don't think there's enough hard drive storage in the world right now to really store everything that we have. Because I don't know what the number is. I don't know if anyone knows, but I mean, someone's put an arbitrary number as to how much data we produce, like as a world or even as just the United States a day, and it's a ridiculous amount. And no one has the budget to really store all of that, especially if it's being stored multiple times by different people. So I don't necessarily believe that everything is being stored somewhere, but certain things they are picking and choosing, and they're picking the things that are important.
Different people are
them,
storing different pieces.
Probably, yeah.
Well, yeah. So if the conspiracy theorists are to be believed, there are places that are doing massive storage facilities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at archive.org.
Yeah, true.
Every website, every change to every website.
Is that kind of like a torrent setup? How or are they storing the data themselves somewhere?
Yep.
So I just did a quick search to. I asked the browser, what is the world's data storage capacity? And I found this nice little article written in 2011. The world's data storage capacity, scientists have come up with a nice little number, 295 exabytes.
Holy.
We were way past that.
And that's only 12 years old. No, wait.
Wait, so an exabyte
14.
is that one above a petabyte, or is it more?
What'd you say?
Um,
2011?
2011, yeah.
Oh yeah, 14 years
Exabyte
old.
is
Wow.
1,000 petabytes.
And what's a petabyte?
1,000 terabytes.
Wow.
That's crazy.
I've
Somebody,
heard of yottabyte.
I've wholly heard of it in theory.
Yeah, I've got a
On
friend of a
paper.
friend,
We've seen it on paper.
you have to
friend of a
say, heard I
friend who
have
says
a
he saw a
petabyte.
yottabyte.
Wait, your friend of a friend has what?
Seen a yottabyte.
He has seen
Really?
a yottabyte?
Where?
Server farm. Big data center designed to
That's
store data.
crazy.
Now, I might be like black bagged here in a minute. I don't know. But yeah, it's one of those things. A yottabyte is now attainable, and we shouldn't discount that.
That is
But,
crazy.
I thought that the best place to see a yottabyte was in Empire Strikes Back in the Dagobah system.
It is now, but give it a few years. I would rather see a yottabyte in my backyard, so I'd have a copy of everything.
I always, I always forget how good that performance is, though, in Empire Strikes Back. Yoda's just so comical in that moment.
Apparently, the whole staff, the whole crew of the movie, they started talking Yoda, like asking questions backwards and forwards, mixing up the language. Like, "Ooh, hungry are you?" And lunch we may have,
Oh man.
and just driving everybody bonkers.
But going back to the whole server thing, yeah, I can't say it's unheard of. A friend of mine, and this was several years ago, he was telling me like, I think his dad worked for a company or owned a company, and they had their own little server system or whatever, data server. And I remember he told me, yeah, they hit a petabyte recently. So, and I mean, I don't think they were a massive company. They were relatively small. So, and if that was just a few years ago, I mean, just thinking of how many companies out there are now, holding petabytes worth of data, if it's, not too uncommon now.
Artie, what's a daily ingest for YouTube?
Holy cow.
Could you look that up for us? So I'm really curious because, I mean, petabyte is a huge number. I mean, it's 1 million gigabytes.
All right, we are not getting the right answers to the question.
You're using Grok or GPT?
I'm not using either. I prefer not to. Let me
So just random, because a lot of people think of storage as in like how many movies can they fit on something.
Mhm.
Although that's completely arbitrary because it depends on frame
Right.
rate.
Yeah,
Is
you
it
want
Blu-ray? But
VHS tapes or 4K? Which would you prefer?
right,
8 millimeter.
completely
Yeah.
arbitrary. But that's how a lot of people think of it because they don't have anything else to put it up against. But if that's your measurement point, and you have a terabyte of storage, can fit around 250 movies of HD video or 500 hours. So
Apologies to
multiply
the
that by
viewers.
1,000 for a petabyte, and that's 250,000 movies or 500,000 hours. Which I guess, what is that in days? I wonder how many days straight would you have to watch Netflix to hit a petabyte?
All
Oh,
of
Wait,
in
how many-
attempting to search for this, I clicked on a link and it had an autoplay, so I'm going through and trying to disable that so I can actually look at that because it looked like it had the answer on that site. So
how many
apologies
movies?
to the viewers that just heard somebody screaming at them.
How many movies did you say it was, Jackson?
Well, we'll call it 500,000 hours of HD video.
So like 250,000. Like an average movie is 2 hours, right?
Yeah, yeah. So 250,000 movies.
I don't
Which
even know if there's.
Well,
That's
think of all
more
the
movies than I even
think of
care
all the security cameras that are out there.
Okay, so here you go. Here it is in years. So assuming you're watching 500,000 hours of HD video, it would take you 57 calendar years to get through all of that.
Get
nonstop.
after it.
So as soon as we find out, I mean, this is going to be nuts. How many years worth of video is uploaded to YouTube a day? I mean, it's got to be. I feel like easily it's well over a petabyte, don't you think?
Oh yeah.
Like way over.
Hmm.
So that's crazy. I mean, because I know that was always a thing. They say, yeah, the rate at which videos are uploaded to YouTube is like far above what you could watch.
But then you got to
Yeah.
consider like that's not raw data. There's encoding and compression.
True.
Oh,
So it's going to be even longer, is what you're saying, right?
like
Well, does it
raw data
transcode on the fly, or
size.
does it hold different bit already encoded and re-encoded?
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess we'll see. But I didn't remember how did we get to this? Just talking about people storing data.
Yeah, just the amount of data that we generate.
Hmm.
I mean, and it's a lot. And we, like I said, it's like different people are interested in different pieces of it. Firefox may be interested in certain pieces that I type in for input,
Mm-hmm.
but then,
Well,
other people are interested in maybe the IP address that I have, or
Right.
so
you
I
know,
just did a search on this, and Google's AI is saying that 518,000 hours of video are loaded every day.
Let's
I
see
found an
YouTube.
answer as well. It's from June of last year. YouTube uses about 100 petabytes of data storage
Currently, like total.
currently, or a year ago.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's got to be more than that. Those data centers
But
are huge.
yeah,
And
That's just for YouTube.
if they're pulling in 500,000 hours a day,
that's over a petabyte.
They're
if
also
it's all HD.
re-encoding everything that you upload.
yeah.
So
That's true.
you might be uploading, say, a 5-hour video, but it will convert that to a very low quality, or not low quality, but
Highly compressed.
highly compressed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I like
Well,
there was a video done by another YouTube channel. I can't remember the name, but he kind of did an experiment where he re-uploaded and downloaded a video from YouTube. I think 100 times.
Oh,
And
I
you can
saw
kind of
that in my feed. I should go back and.
yeah, it was kind of funny to see. He kind of talks through it all, but I mean, progressively the quality just goes down and down and down to where it's completely unrecognizable, which is kind of funny. But then
replicative fading.
right. And it's you can pretty much compare that to what AI is when you start feeding AI its own input. That's what you get. It's the same idea. But it's kind of interesting too because I mean the way that they compress video, and it must be the same because I mean this is what I was seeing is, but if everything is still, it doesn't really have to capture any new video data. It's just the same frame. And so there were moments where in the video he's still and not much changes, and then all of a sudden you can see him perfectly clear, and then it goes back to just like pixels.
Those are called keyframes.
Yeah. Artie, how
Yeah,
are we
it's-
doing on time? We getting
We got
close?
about 5 minutes left.
Perfect.
So what's our advice on end user license agreements? You got to click yes or no.
Depends on how much you really want to use what you're clicking on. If you're installing something that you really need to use or something like that, you're going to click yes. And I sincerely doubt that anybody is going to sit down and read through everything.
I won't. I wouldn't ask
Well,
if anyone else does. I couldn't do that to somebody.
prove I'm the one that clicked yes.
True.
I mean, as a computer tech, we install software for people on their behalf. I shouldn't say this on the record, but I never look at the person and say, "Hey, do you agree?" There's a few times I jokingly say, "Hey, do you want to decline this, or shall I just say okay?"
I
Because
think
they're paying me to install it.
That's the assumption from paying you to install it, I believe.
So if I'm paid to install it, do I need to put in our legal contracts disclaimer says I will seek permission from you, or you have contracted us to install on your behalf and agree to everything?
That might actually be a good idea going forward.
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, but again, it's like one of those common sense, and you should always assume that there's, like just like I said, when I download and install software on my computer, I should already assume that there's going to be some risk in using that program.
Mhm.
I pay an IT company to come install software for me. I should naturally assume that that they're acting on my behalf, and so any agreement to use the software is really my agreement, not theirs. And
Yeah.
and
And what about
they're my authorized agent. We have a contract agreement to be their IT provider. That means we're an authorized agent of some sort to do certain things with their accounts or with software install or whatever it may be.
Well, and to throw
South
another
Park
wrench into
touched
that,
this very well.
Mike, you've installed software behind the scenes before.
Mhm.
We do it all the time when a customer says, "Hey, enterprise rollout, here's an update to Teams."
Mhm.
We don't click OK, and user doesn't click OK. It just happens.
Mhm.
I
Sorry
think
for
it's going to be
talking
an
over you.
interesting time. Go ahead.
I was trying to say earlier, South Park touched on this in one of their older episodes. You signed the agreement, you agreed to this, and it's like, something I think that we should put out there is there are certain things that you cannot put in an end user license agreement as like a binding thing legally, and for years they've been trying to push that line, the companies that make them, as to what they actually have control over when you click the yes or the tick mark and then continue with the installation. There's certain information that legally, depending upon your jurisdiction, I should say, they cannot force you to abide by. And end user license agreement is used in probably a dozen countries because they're illegal in the rest of them. So something else to keep in mind when it comes to these agreements. Terms of service, that is a different ball of wax entirely.
Well, and it's getting so nuanced that it's hard for people to do things. I think the best thing I could recommend to anybody listening to this is go with your best of intentions. Go with, we're all going to get along at the end of the day. Don't try and break the rules. Don't try and bend the laws. And we'll be fine. If company decides that they're going to flex past things and enough people rise up and push back, like what just happened with Firefox, good things will happen in big numbers. So don't stay silent, but know that there's not much we can do to change the agreements that are thrown at us.
Yeah, I think you said it well.
Well, we're at the end of the hour.
Cool. Well, put the landing gear down. Let's wrap this show up.
I would like to extend an apology to everybody listening for everything that came through on my microphone, because a software update disabled all of my noise suppression. And I will be reverting before the next...
Did you just apologize for all the words you shared?
Pretty much.
Okay, just checking.
Well,
I think
hopefully it
I'll join
wasn't so
that
bad
sentiment.
on. Didn't seem like it was too bad on our end already, so I think you're mostly Mostly
next
good.
next stream will be a lot better. Yeah, I'm. You live, you learn.
No worries. Well, next time I actually want to take a chance to go around and I want to hear everybody's backstory, not in depth. Let's not take the I was born on a snowy day, parents drove uphill both ways. No. But let's talk about our accolades, what we've done. How did we get to now? So
Yeah.
tune in next time as we decide what to share, what is awesome, and how we got to now. Until then, I'm John.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jackson.
And I'm sorry.
And we are out of here.